Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings dear ones, I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I want to talk about connections. We have spoken of these things before, but I want you to wipe the slate clean of who you really think you might be historically. Let's paint the picture that we have many times before. You are sitting here or listening as an old soul. The definition we have used of an old soul is one who has been on this planet many, many times. And therefore you have an accumulation of wisdom, of experience. And as you sit here, you know so. Whatever makes you different, you feel it in the wisdom. And that is to say, you would recognize when you start speaking to people, discussing things, that you seem to know things they haven't discovered yet. This is the old soul. It doesn't make the old soul that special or above or below any other human being any more than it does when you go to school. You go through a process, all of you, where you learn things at a certain level and you move to the next level and you learn more. And you're all together in the school. So there is no one who is better or worse. There is just those who know more. That's the old soul. And so you start investigating esoterically, what would that mean? Now, I've given you a hint when we say, dear ones, you might be your own ancestors. That would mean that those in the past, a distant past, on this planet, were you. How do you feel to be that old? What might you have gained by being your own ancestor? It's so interesting, is it not, that many of the indigenous will then call in their ancestors to make decisions. And if you ask them, who are you really calling, they may skirt the issue. But they have that idea, that paradigm, that they were there. So really, they're calling in the energy of the wisdom of who they used to be, as well as the connection with the planet. So when you hear the indigenous consulting their ancestors, it's more than just those who used to live there. It's profound. The societies of today have lost that connection. And so there is a part of the lesson that we have taught over and over to reconnect with the past. The past not meaning who you were or necessarily what you did, but the fact that you were even here, contributing with the planet. And that past that would go into the realization that there is more here than you think, that the earth has energy that you really have not considered in most of the cultures of today. But there's more. So how far back do you want to go? And the further back you go starts to define who you might be. So let's go to that which the archaeologists say would be the beginning. Maybe 14,000, 15,000 years ago. And we have told you, well, that was not the beginning. It was more than that. For there was a civilization before yours and one before that. We've given you channeling that would say that these are starting to be discovered. Someday there will be archaeology which admits there must have been those before those who you admit are there now. And then you look at that which is the oldest civilization on the planet as measured and provable, and that is the one called the Aborigine. Now you're at 40 to 50,000 years old. So you don't know what civilization you were in, but you know that you were at least 40,000 years old soul. especially if you came in at the beginning. Now you have a tremendous background of knowledge, of being a human through all of this. All of that stops at about 200,000 years ago. And that is the timeline that we have given. The timeline for the kind of evolution which gave you a different kind of DNA. You might say, some of you have been here since then, since it all began in some way. Now, that is amazing. How old are you? Wow. You cannot even conceive of that distance, that many past lives. What if all of that was still inside you? We teach that it is. Nothing has been withheld from your DNA experience. And so you can even remember civilizations that are not even recorded or admitted on this planet. There were far, far fewer of you back then, dear ones, but old souls on this planet have often participated in most of those. That's why there aren't that many old souls in comparison to the billions on the planet and the few million of you. How old are you? And if you were there from the beginning, what was your connection, truly, to all that is, to the creative source, to the teaching of those from the stars? Those from the stars. Oh my goodness. Let's think about that for a moment. If you ask many indigenous on this planet, especially the ones who are still in touch with their heredity, their mythology, their traditions, and their ancestors, if you start to ask them the question of how things got started, in other words, ask an indigenous, what is your creation story? Many of them will say, we came from the stars. Now we get esoteric, dear ones. I want you to wipe the slate clean of everything you ever thought you knew, of what you were told about who you might be. When the Pleiadians got here, the whole purpose of that ascended planet was to give you the knowledge of the Creator, to alter your DNA so that you kept what was working for you and they added on to it. It was morphed, adjusted, and the additions were that which were Pleiadian. You therefore have DNA from the stars. If this is so, how old are you? Let's stop for a moment. I want to give you some astronomy in a way that I haven't necessarily given to you before. We interrupt this esoteric time to give you science. But those who listen to it will say it's pseudoscience because it's not accepted yet. It's not believed yet. And like so many other things, there'll be a day when scientists, astronomers listen to this channel and say, you know, he was right. So let's talk about what they don't accept yet. You might have noticed in many of the channelings of Kryon that we speak of your galaxy. We don't speak of the universe. Maybe some of you never picked that up. But this is something we have been doing now for more than 28 years. And almost all of the discussions of things outside of the purview of your solar system are those from the galaxy. Rarely, if ever, do we say the universe. Now, why would this be? It's difficult to let you have this information because you don't know what you don't know. But there's two things you should know. Number one, the other galaxies, and there are trillions in the universe, the other galaxies are each unique to themselves in so many ways. And even that which you would call normal physics is different from galaxy to galaxy. So we don't talk about the life in other galaxies. It doesn't refer to your kind of life. This is a setup from the center of your galaxy. The center sets up the physics for the galaxy, period. And the centers of each of the other galaxies are unique to themselves. So, in summary, what I'm saying is that physics, that which you believe is universal, changes from galaxy to galaxy. So we only talk about this one because this is the one with your kind of life. Here's another hint to the physicists. We've said it before. Think about it. Use logic. In physics, you have discovered something, and it's correct. There is a polarity for everything. There is a polarity even within your cellular structure. But all the way out to basic physics and the galaxy, there is a polarity. The rules and laws of physics that you have set up shows it. You have a strong and weak force here, a strong and weak force there. Every single rule of physics you have set up, humans, is polarized, strong and weak force. And that is a push-pull energy, like magnetics, that literally is responsible for everything you see in the galaxy, right to the individual cellular structure down to the molecule of DNA. But in your infinite wisdom of the way things work, you look to the center of the galaxy and you say there is one thing. It's not logical. Even in your own physics, it's not logical to say at the center there is a black hole, a singularity, which actually violates your own rules of physics. At the center of the galaxy is a pair. There is polarity at the center, and how it pushes and pulls and how it works sets up the physics that you know and study right here on the planet. That is why we talk about your galaxy. So, back to the esoteric. You came from the stars in your galaxy. If it's true, dear ones, that this benevolent, beautiful, graduate civilization called the Pleiadians came almost as angels. They know the one God. I'll say this again. Why is it such a stretch for you to believe this? Why is it a stretch for you to believe there's life on other planets, in other systems in your galaxy? Life is everywhere. Where is the logic that it only occurred in one tiny little place? We've said this before. It's like the human being born, growing up and sitting on the beach on an island and saying, I can only see this beach and this sand. Therefore, because I cannot see others, this is the only beach on earth. It's that silly. It's everywhere. Life is everywhere. But your kind of life that is sentient and knowing about the Creator is not everywhere. That is why the Pleiadians came to seed you. It has to be free choice. God inside is given only to few planets of the trillions and trillions that could support life. But only a few get seated like the Pleiadians seated you. They know the creative source. They know the one God, just as you're discovering, dear ones. They are not outsiders. They are not ETs. They are from the creative source. They are the Pleiadians. There was great love in that, to come here and seed you, and so many of them never go home. Beautiful love in this. It is not odd. It is not otherworldly. It's from the creative source. You have their DNA. Therefore, how old are you? If you have their history, then you're as old as they are. Now, there is somewhat of a veil that happens that keeps you from remembering anything but your earth lives. We say somewhat of a veil because it is in the Akash. It's almost like a block, so you will not go back any further than that which you can recall from your life on this planet. But oh boy, it's in your DNA because you have DNA from the stars. Well, what if we go further? Who seeded the Pleiadians? And who seeded the ones who seeded those who seeded the Pleiadians? How many billions of years has a soul called you operated in this galaxy? Now, old soul, how old are you? Who are you? You're from the stars, all of you. You were your own ancestors, planetary ancestors. You're your own planetary parents. You're your own planetary grandparents. And in that you have more wisdom than you can imagine. And dear ones, that is what's awakening. You're a child of the galaxy, almost from the beginning life that ever was here. Billions of years older than your own planet. That's how old you are. That's the connection that you have. And when so many of you go outside and look at this grand earth and the beauty of it, especially here, sometimes it sweeps in only for a moment, only for a fraction of a second. This is just one of many. And you've been on most of them that held this beautiful life in combination with that which you call Pachamama, that which you call Gaia. Every single planet was anointed, initiated, and had an energy that resound to the inhabitants like you do. And that is also carried forth. When you gaze up into the stars, it's harder for you to see it. But don't you feel something? When the stars are out and there's no light pollution and you can see them all, don't you feel part of it? And that's why. Because you are. I want you to take this information of connection and understand this part. You belong here. There was not an accident that the lineage of the stars brought you here to the earth when it did, that you could participate in being an old soul through civilizations so you could come to, are you ready? The only one that has made it. The only graduate civilization, the only one who did not destroy itself on schedule like the others did, like you were going to. And now you begin an uphill climb, eliminating darkness, absorbing light, paradigm shift, the struggle of old and new. That's where you are. Each of you has short lifetimes. That's going to change. And it's not going to be science, it's going to be the evolution of humanity. It's going to be cellular. Because the cells will start evolving. And the telomeres will not shorten. And you'll start living longer. Disease will not attach to a higher vibrating human being. And you'll live longer. But all of you who have gone through life after life will eventually, in the corporeal cells and the body you have, will pass over. And when it's time to do that, for each of you listening and in this room, I'll tell you something. That within 3 of your earth days, the party begins. You awaken into what you already know, to the grandness of being on the other side of the veil in a soul group that is galactic. Knowing what you know, you start to hear the music that you cannot hear now. I am metaphorically talking about things that you have no idea of. And that will then reveal, again, the majesty of who you are, what you've been through. And who are you going to meet there in that soul group? And I will tell you, you're going to meet the galactic center of humanity and all those who call themselves children of God. And there'll be trillions, and you'll know them all. And the celebration is grand as you prepare to return, to place the veil again on this planet so you won't remember any of it. It's not a simulation, but it is artificial. And what I mean by that is this earth was made for you. Gaia was made for you. This is the test of energy, not the test of the human, the test of the energy of light and dark that you are beginning to go through. Passing this test will create a planet which will then seed another and another and another. And the entire reason for this is to raise the vibration of this galaxy. It might even change the physics. Is that too high-minded for you as you sit here in a room in 2018? Light years, you might say, away from where it's going. You'll be there. You'll see. The words today are written down. They'll be there. They'll be studied. Someday they won't have to be, because you'll know intuitively everything that's ever been channeled. And you'll see the reality of the majesty you are and recognize the God inside, just like the ones who seeded you. This is the connection. You can't get your head around it, perhaps. It's too big, perhaps. But it's there for you to ponder when you look in the sky. This is the message, and it always will be the message. As long as my partner can utter it, this is the message of Kryon. Magnificence inside. And so it is. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Impossible it is for me to give you information that is the kind of thing that must be felt, absorbed. But I try. And there may be some listening, some here today, that will understand this more than ever before. Because the energy on this planet is moving. It is moving to a place that is more commensurate with a gentle awakening of truth. A gentle awakening of truth. Not a revelation where you're marching the streets and carrying signs, but individual, gentle awakening. And the truth is this: what is the essence of God? And does it involve me? That is what you're asking. That's what the human is thinking and saying that is different. If you took a look at the demographics, that is the average of ages of human beings who might be coming to these meetings, or the ones that are interested in listening to this message, it's beginning to change. Whereas this was almost exclusively a 40-over club, it is starting to move. More and more young people who are old souls on this planet are awakening in ways they cannot explain. Sometimes they will never hear a Kryon channel, and it doesn't matter, because their awakening will take them on a study of God inside. It'll be an awakening that'll be something different than yours. And they'll start asking questions. And they're not even spiritual questions, not really. And the questions is there something bigger than I was told? I feel a largeness of my life. It's something I can't explain, coming right from their mouths. Am I here for a reason? I feel that there's a purpose. And they'll start an inward journey, an examination that may or may not bring them to any of this you hear today. But the conclusion will be the same. And they will begin to question that of their childhood information. And that then bothers them as well. It should bother you. It does. If you awaken to a truth that is different from that which your mother gave you, if you awaken to a truth that is different from a favorite instructor, or from a priest, a minister, a pastor, if you awaken to truth that resounds to you that is so different than you were taught, we told you this before, it's difficult. Some will be confused by it. It's difficult because it's almost a betrayal. We've said that before. It feels like you are moving into an area that is different than anything they taught. And you have to then wade through those emotions. You even have to ask yourself, should I even go here? It's so different than Mom gave me. It's so different than I learned. And to you, I'm going to say this. Those who gave you that information gave it to you in the greatest integrity and love they had. This is what they felt. This is what they learned. This is what they gave you, thinking that you needed to hear as close to the truth as they had heard. It's not a betrayal. And if some of those are now missing from this planet and have gone on and passed on, I can tell you they're in the room right now saying, listen to this. I said that before. We didn't know. Listen to this. And what they're discovering is what we teach, and we have now for all of these years. The same information, meeting after meeting, given in different words. And that is this: the essence of the creative source, which you call God, was never human. That the consciousness, if God even had the consciousness, cannot be then measured by human standards. That the things that human beings experience called human nature belong to Earth, not the galaxy, not the universe, and not the creative source, which is God. How many times have I sat here saying, suspend all belief just for a moment. Throw away the box just for a moment. Put it back if you want to. But while you're sitting here in the chair, just throw it away. And imagine for a moment a consciousness that isn't really a consciousness. You see, it's beyond definition. It's love. And if you can imagine a love that is so pure, and the light is so bright within it, that it goes beyond anything you can possibly even imagine, it's not right yet. Now amplify that over and over, and you'll begin to feel and understand what the creative source is. We've said this before, love is the most powerful thing in the universe. It's a throwaway phrase because you'll find the humans saying it over and over just to emphasize how much they love you or they love the planet. They have no idea. The central source of all that is, that created all that is, that has complete and total control over all that is If God had a hand, could wave it, and all things would change. Physics itself is designed by God. The way things work is God's design. If you don't like the word God, call it creator. But that which is the most prominent in there, if you could look inside it, is love. How many times have we given you the example of the mother who looks at their firstborn for the first time, and we say, if you think that's love, it isn't. It may give you tears to think about that feeling the first time, so pure it was to look upon the infant that was given to you. And realize just how beautiful and how unconditional. It just scratches the surface as to what that is in the center we call the creative source. And to think that the universe itself was created by this source, and that billions and billions of years took place where galaxies formed and planets around suns and the cooling and the life and all of that brings you to a human being sitting in a chair today that ponders what's out there. We'll ponder away, but I'll tell you what's out there. Love. We've said this, in the beginning there was love. That's all there was. In the blackness of blackness, that's all there was. There was love. If I told you there were multiverses, yours is just one of many. Could you see that which is teeming with life beyond anything you can imagine, in dimensions that you don't even know exist? They know about love. And slowly, the essence of God is felt by so many. This is the time on the earth for the shift. And the awakening of old souls has begun. And we've said this before, the awakening doesn't hook you into a religion. The awakening does not hook you into something suddenly where you were an atheist and now you're not. It starts to make sense of even the atheist logic of why they're an atheist. It starts to redesign a paradigm of God, of the Creator, and what might have happened here, which is beyond anything, truly, that is universally taught on the planet. Something so different and so special, so compassionate and so loving as the start of life. Life that would eventually have a choice. Life that would be composed of souls from the creative source. How about that? What if you were part of the love? What if your soul is eternal? What if it's been here as long as the source itself? That begs a question. What if the creative source called God, called love, split in some ways, magical ways, and you were involved in the split? Not a split like you think of it in a linear way, but a sharing that would go out where pieces and parts of that great love you can't even imagine that still were part of that, only they would come and be shared. And in the sharing, they find themselves in a body with your name. You got to start unlearning what you were told. We can put it to you in many ways. A beautiful little girl sits on a floor and mom starts to explain what mom thinks is so precious and so beautiful about God. And the little girl is all ears, and she's listening and watching her mom's lips and feeling what mother has to say. And she says, "Mom, let me tell you about God." And the more she talks, the more you would realize today, Mom hasn't got a clue. But she's doing her best. And here's what the little girl hears. God is the creator, Father. And that in heaven there were wars. There was a fallen angel, real bad guy, horns and a tail. He now represents everything bad and evil. And then he tells the little girl, and I hope you never meet him, but you might, if you don't do what you're told. And what you're told is there in that building over there. They've got some words for you to hear. It's what God wants you to do. Be careful, because there's going to be a judgment day where someday after you die, you're going to have to report, and there's going to be a list. And then that beautiful God who created you with all the love that's possible that you can even consider is going to torture you in hell forever. And the little girl is all ears. And her eyes are wide open. And that goes into her mind and etches itself in the syntax and the neurons of belief. And for some of you, that's your story. It comes with that which is born dirty. You don't have a chance. Born dirty. Mom doesn't have a clue, but Mom's doing her best. Because that's what Mom's mom told her. And that's the prevailing truth, and it comes from a low consciousness understanding of the creative source. It's not anyone's fault. Don't blame yourself. Understand that with free choice, this planet has gone to that level where they will humanize the creative source. They'll put human nature and paste it on the face of all that is. The greatest love that ever was. Compassion you can't imagine suddenly becomes a dysfunctional human. The best you got. You got to unlearn this. And one of the things that you can do, dear ones, is to start reprogramming the subconscious, because that's where it lurks, right in the subconscious. That which you may not even be aware exists in your mind, those are the tapes that play. That's what Mom told you. That's what some of you have experienced. That's the fear that you might have had over the Almighty. Imagine being taught to be afraid of love. Imagine. And that's what's happened. Old souls, I speak to you now in this short channeling. I don't just want you to wake up to truth. I want you to wake up and reprogram your subconscious. And in order to do that, your conscious is going to have to come on board. And it will start reprogramming the subconscious with a truth that will invade you with light. Will wipe away all of the untruths, the low energy of anything you've been taught, which absolutely is not spiritual logic. How can you sit here and believe those things about the purity of the Creator, which loves you so much? And what was God doing while Mom was teaching that? Every word would come out of her mouth, etched into that child's mind. I'll tell you, if God could cry, that's when the weeping would be. Love does that. Compassion does that. It will sit at the feet of a free choice human being and will weep at low energy. And that is what is changing. That's why a young person now who would not be in this meeting would start to wake up and say, I'm feeling different about everything. I'm feeling there's purpose. I'm feeling somehow I'm involved. And they be right. Every old soul right now is involved in the shift, an awakening to higher consciousness. It has nothing to do with religion. Higher consciousness is an awakening to each other. It's an awakening that says there is a confluence of coherence where human hearts are starting to come together and starting to see the truth of compassion the value of how you treat one another, of life itself, starting to see the cracks, the dirt, starting to clean it up, starting to call things for what they've been and not be afraid of it, starting to love one another in ways they never have before, in a purer way. I'm not just talking about those who are allied as mates on this planet. I'm talking about families and non-families who look at one another and say, you know, you're a good person. I see God in you. I see the compassion in you. The difference in the old energy is circle your wagons and protect yourself. Compete for resources. Don't let anybody take anything from you. That's basic survival, and it's moving to the survival of compassion. And that is where human beings don't circle the wagons and protect themselves. Instead, they ally with one another and start to realize the value of peace, and start to realize the value, literally, of love itself and what it generates. How many of you have passed others where you'll hear an argument or something is being said to someone, and all of a sudden you feel a cloud around you. There's a negative, there's a shield that goes up, and you can't believe what you're hearing. It actually permeates that which is dramatic. That's new. There was a time when that's just the way it works. You walk around and yell at each other, and you're going to get your way, and that's life. In some cultures today, it still is the way it is. But there's so much that's changing. So much that's changing. You're going to have to unlearn these things that were told to you by whomever, that were told in high integrity for the time, best they could give you. Mom, best they could give you. And if she's here right now, she would say, it's the best I had. It's what I was told. I want you to do something for me right now, and we don't do this very often. Dear ones, you were born magnificent. How does that feel to you? Born magnificent. Would you say these words with me? I am born magnificent. I am born magnificent. How does it feel to state that truth? Is it a blasphemy? Is it difficult? Is it against what your mom say? Would you say it again? I am born magnificent. How many times do you have to say that before your conscious mind agrees? Before the subconscious starts to be reprogrammed the third time? I am born magnificent. What you have just uttered 3 times is the truest truth of all. It starts there. It starts there. And if you have the magnificence of the Creator, your soul, in your biology, it's the first thing that you've got to cognize. And I'll tell you, everything comes from there. Everything comes from that. And it starts to grow. It starts to wipe away the lack of self-worth from everything you were told of who you're supposed to be. It redefines you, and you are doing the redefining. That's the power of the human being. You might say those words at least once a day in a quiet place in a mirror as you look. And you might say, I was born magnificent. And you might start to get the chills of validation that all human beings experience in some way sometimes. There are those in the room who depend upon those chills to do their mediumship, to do their healing. They know of what I speak. That biology starts to cooperate with truth. And you start to look at yourselves and you say with a smile, I'm born magnificent. And then it graduates to I am magnificent in God's eyes. And then it gets real tricky when you look and say, I am a piece of God. Tricky only because that's not what you were taught. But that becomes the truth. And that's the platform from which you can launch compassion for others. That's the platform, not the ego. That is that beautiful love platform that gives you permission to look out and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to give light to the Oval Office, I'm going to do these kinds of things that people will criticize me for because they're not in the right politics or whatever. They don't understand that this goes beyond any kind of opinion. It's light. It's light from the creative source. It creates a path where those who can see better, you can do that because you were born magnificent. That's the essence of God. The essence of God is what is in you, what is being discovered, and what you're awakening to. There is the beauty of life. And the more you start to cognize this, believe it, the more you start to believe it, the more your subconscious starts to come along and rewrite itself into what you were told, into something that is core truth for the universe, that is going to help others, change other humans, and make a difference. If you're awakening to an idea that there was something bigger, there is. If you're awakening to the idea that you're here on purpose, you are. If you're awakening to an idea that you're part of something bigger and there's something happening, it's all right there. It's a new earth, a paradigm that is developing for an old soul. That's who's listening. That's who sits in front of me. And it is beautiful. Let the negative, dark things of this planet slowly show themselves so that you can eliminate them. Let the ugliest, horrible things that are going on in the cracks of humanity show themselves so you can look at it and command that they go away. And society will agree and they'll disappear. Let the unconscionable things that are going on with children stop because they show themselves. And when they do, you'll remember this channel and say, he's right. Things are really starting to move into the light. And then you might even say, I'm so glad that I am here to see it, to work with it, because now I know. I was born magnificent. And so it is. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. And it took my partner a long time to understand the process that you see now. And in certain ways, you have rehearsed the process. For even in the small exercise you have just accomplished, you take that which is the first intuitive thought and you translate it as best you can into a linear concept or sentence or group of words or word. And many times it is metaphoric, and this is common. A puzzle that must be solved, an image that must be interpreted, even words that don't make sense, that will mean other things in other languages. And this is very, very normal. Spirit speaks to humanity one at a time and never in a group, if you've noticed. As this message is given to the group, it's not for the group. It's for each and individual soul in the room. An overlay of that, which is quantum, is metaphoric, the third language. Now, the third language is intuition, which rides upon the signal, if you wish, of the communication that you have accepted to hear in the room. Not on the audio, but the fact that you are tuned in with intent. And so every single channeling has an attribute of more than one communication. Some will hear the same words and feel the same energies and walk away feeling nothing happen. Another human sitting next to them will have the healing that they asked for. And so it's never a group energy. And that is why I speak to each one of you separately. It's complex. You tune in to the words, your logic understands the linearity of the syntax, and at the same time there are concepts being given to you through intuition. We call it the third language as a metaphor. For it is not the language that is after two. The third language is a language of the three. And the three, in numerological terms, is catalyst. So what would a language be that was catalytic? That would be an energy which changes something while it remains the same. As it comes in contact with something else, the something else changes while it remains stable. Therefore, you are receiving right now, at whatever level you wish to receive it, a catalytic message. And sometimes the message is simple. It's a safe place. You're with family. Or, this is real. The reality of the message, one of the biggest obstacles of a human being, is that the man in the chair pretending. Or is he doing what I think he is doing? And let me tell you what he's doing. Years it took him to understand the process and complement it with his energy. For in the beginning, when it was time for Kryon to come into this man's life, I came in with information that he called burst information. All at once, given to him as a thought group, as a concept, which he then had to interpret, but not in real time. That is to say, I would give him information, there would be a pause, and he would repeat what he thought he was. I would give him information, there would be a pause, and then he would repeat that, what he thought it was. So it was back and forth. And it was separate. And that is to say, there was Kryon and then there was Lee. Years later, up to 4, he started integrating that which was me and that which was him into a system that now flows. And let me tell you what the system is and how it works. I can feed him intuitive thought instantly. I can feed it to him faster than he can speak. And so the system goes like this. Channeling is the manifestation of translation of intuitive linearity. I have learned to slow down that which I wish the human beings to know to a pace that he can interpret in real time. And that was pretty good. Until about 4 years ago, when I asked him if he wanted to go to the next step. And he said, what step would that be? And I said, total integration. And that would be so that you could hear me. The love that I have for humanity, the compassion of the other side of the veil, and not just words. And so it was more than intuitive thought. It was concepts combined with a linear voice message, combined with the emotion of God, all in a package that was complex, that took him years to see and recognize and trust. So the words you hear now, he has no concept are coming until they are actually manifested in the air. It took him a long time. This is not what humans are used to. They want to know what's coming. They want the concepts at least to be presented in advance. And some of them are good at talking around concepts, so it becomes spirit and them. And that is also channeling. Some will take concepts and be able to channel around them with core information given to them at different points in their lecture channeling. That's valid channeling. Some will write it down. That's valid channeling. Some will paint a picture. And that's valid channeling. Some will compose music. It's beautiful. It touches your soul, and that's channeling. Some will have sculptures, and that's channeling. All the things which are creative on this planet, which fulfill a passion of delivery, of beauty to another human being, can be channeled. The healer who sits in front of the patient and receives the information from the patient's body, which we call innate, to them, allows them to channel the healing solution. They're channeling. When you face off with someone who is difficult, and you wish to have the right words that will show the love of God in you, and yet the sternness of truth, and you search your depth of language for the delivery, and then suddenly something comes out which is succinct and beautiful, and they have no words to reply because you have given them truth. And you will say, I wonder where that came from. That's channeling. And so when you face off in the groups, in this time, in this day, as you did, and you ask for a message for perhaps not only yourself, but for the others that you do not know, this exercise tests that which you feel uncomfortable with. For you are first faced with a social situation. What if I can't think of anything, you say? Will I appear to be a fool, you say? What if I look in their eyes and nothing comes across, you say? Well, I'll have something in reserve, perhaps, you say. I'll think of something wise to say in case I get nothing. And all of this is part of the process, and we know that. If you do this often enough, you learn to sit back and relax. And you don't think of anything in reserve. For you know that Spirit will give you something, and that something will be good enough. And you trust it. When my partner first began to work, he had concerns. What if he gathered an auditorium full of people and I did not show up? You don't think that occurred? What would he have in reserve? And he had to walk through this. And I let him. I let him think about it and worry about it until we integrated. And the best thing that ever happened to him is when he let go. When he let go of the concern, the worry, the embarrassment, the social necessity of survival, not to look bad. And that's when the intuition flew in. And that's when the portal opened up. That's when the pipeline gets bigger. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of the process of where it comes from. For you're told it, of course, originates in the brain. And it doesn't. For what you are experiencing, despite all the things that the psychologists will tell you, is not biological. And yet you are told that thought is processed and created by the brain in packages which they understand to be synapse, perhaps even going so far as to be called engrams of consciousness, carried in packets through nerves to present concepts that human beings have. Verbalized linearity, and whatever you want to call it. And it's none of those things. For these come from the outside in. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, what happened to the higher self? So this begs a question. Where is the higher self? Well, you might say, it's inside me. What if it was you? What if it lurks, if you want to call that, in what is called innate? Now we get complex. For this is the quantum field around every single human being that knows all about the body. It knows more than the body does. Let me ask you this question yet again. Does it make sense to you that you could have disease in your body and the body doesn't know it? Isn't it supposed to be intelligent? Intelligent enough to know when it's diseased, what it can stand, what it cannot stand. And yet even the most basic premises of metaphysics has you doing kinesiology, which is muscle testing. And here is where you're asking innate, am I allergic to this? Can I have this? What is the dosage? Do I have a disease? Isn't it odd that that does not come from inside? Your immune system fights things, but it doesn't even know it has something to fight sometimes. You can have all the white blood vessels in your body rushing to one place to fight a cancer, and you don't even know you have cancer because your body doesn't tell you. There's a disconnect somewhere in there, you might say. Well, that disconnect is not designed to be a disconnect. You're supposed to be able to be in touch with innate. That is to say, that part of your body that is not biological. Very difficult to explain. Now it's integrated, but what good does it do to have integration when the innate is in the other room with the door shut? So what you're asking for is a full body experience to open the door and know the things that innate knows. There are some unanswered biological questions that to this day are not even being asked. 100 trillion molecules of DNA are identical in your body. Your big toe has the same DNA as the top of your head. It's not like your cellular structure, which knows whether it's a kidney or a fingernail. Your DNA is identical all over your body. There is a process where it communicates 100 trillion times, a quantity that communicates with itself and knows all about you. That's the DNA that we speak of. And in that there is consciousness. It's innate. You might say there's another you in there that you'd like to get in touch with. And you'd be right. We've spoken of the divine parts of you. And this is the intuitive generator. Innate is quantum. The field around you and your DNA is quantum. And that is to say, it is actually in a multi-dimensional state. Human intuition
is that innate which often speaks to you when you least expect it. Channeling is tuning into it to the degree where innate is always working and becomes linear. Do you have help? Oh, yes. And this is the hardest thing we have ever taught. You want to think you have guides and angels. Well, go ahead and think it, if it makes you happy. Go ahead and name them, if it makes you happy. Go ahead and count them, if it makes you happy. For human beings need to often linearize quantum concepts in order for it to fall into an order where they can appreciate it and use it and understand it. The truth of the matter is, you cannot name them and you cannot count them. This is very difficult. We told you at one time, in the lineage of Kryon teaching, that you had 3 guides. That is a metaphor. Just like the third language is a metaphor. It's about the 3. Have you noticed the packages of 3 which are divine? Even the doctrines of earth, in the rigidness of the metaphors and the mythology of some of your religious practices, celebrate the 3. The Godhead is the 3 in one. You'll find it everywhere on the planet. It is part of divinity. It is seen in a trilogy of energies. You have 3 guides, not really. They are the energy of the 3. And the 3, again, is a catalytic number. In other words, whatever it is that you call help, that you believe is around you, catalyzes you and everything else around you in synchronicity. I told you this would not make a lot of sense. Some of you are getting it and some of you are not. Again, we turn to the soup. It is the only metaphor we have. If your life is a bowl of soup, count the flavor. Count the salt. You can't. But you know it's there. I call upon the salt, all 3 of them. You see? I call upon the flavor, which I happens to know are named Joe, Henry, and Mildred. And they're not, and you can't. Count love for me. How many loves do you have for your children? Do you see what I'm saying? Can you understand the concept? Is it too etheric for you? Or do you really need to see their faces? And if you could, what would they look like? What does the face of God look like? And I will again tell you this, if you could see their faces, it would be so confusing, because your face is theirs. And you would see you 3 times. The higher self is in every molecule of the soup. It is part of innate. It doesn't reside in your heart or your brain. It is outside of you and inside of you. It permeates you in a quantum field. You cannot locate it. It is higher than you are. And some will say, well, that means it's above me. Of course it's not inside me. That's incorrect. It's called the higher self because it vibrates higher than you do. Therefore, it is the part of you which is in a vibratory state which creates a multidimensional reality. If you could only open the door between the corporeal you and the quantum you, called the higher self, you would be complete. And that is the study, is it not? So here's what it comes down to. Do you have help? Yes. Are they guides and angels? If you wish. If you wish. It's more than that. They are a soup of energy which is partially you and partially the higher you. It is the divine. All divine things are connected to the source. The creative source of the universe is part of you. The connection is there. Do you have help? Yes. Where is it really coming from? Yes. You cannot identify a place. Well, there is heaven, is there not? If you wish. Or is it in every air molecule? Is it in the life of nature? Does it permeate Gaia? Is it everything you see? Is it light? Yes. It means you're never alone. Here's what the masters and the shamans know. Wherever I walk, I have help. They all have my face. They're beautiful. I am a piece of God. I am quantum. My guides are endless. I have help. My intuition comes from the creative source. I have help from the air, the animals, the trees, the dirt I walk on. Love permeates everything around me. It is part of innate. I do not ask where, for there is no where. I do not ask who, for the who is the one, and it is I. And it may not make sense, because it's not in 3D, but can you feel the beauty? Can you feel the compassion which created it? Most of all, can you feel it in you and use it? And that is the invitation. The day my partner gave up trying to figure it out is when it came in. Don't try to figure it out. If you're consumed with love for an animal, for a child, for another human being, do you stop and figure it out? Or do you simply verbalize it to everyone you know and the universe? I'm in love. And I'm happy about it. What else can you say? When you write love letters to one you're in love with, what do you say? What can you say? Not enough. Overwhelming it is. Quantum it is. A piece of God it is. What is the one thing an animal can feel that you can give it beyond food, nurturing, shelter? And that is love. And is it true or is it not true that they look in your eyes and love you back? And it is. It is a universal quantum energy that cannot be denied. It will tame the wild horse. And it's the only thing it will. It is palatable. It is beautiful. And it is quantum. And you don't try to figure that out, do you? So why don't you now apply this to yourself? I'm not going to figure out how many guides I have, what the angels look like, or whether they come and they go. I am connected to Spirit in a way where I never have to do that. Here's what my partner knows. As long as he keeps this portal clean, as long as he lives, when he sits in the chair, I'll be there. That's what he knows. And now before he channels, he doesn't worry about what it's going to be like, how long it's going to last, what the subject might be, or whether I'll be there. Do you see that? So the exercise you just did shows some things to you. I know who's here. I know what the thought processes are. Let it go. Best thing you can do before opening your mouth to another person where you have to say something succinct, correct, proper, beautiful, is to empty your mind of everything you might say. And then say whatever it is that comes to you. And that takes trust and faith, and that will be innate talking.
a full body experience linked to your consciousness. It will make a difference in your life. It's an advanced teaching for an advanced group who will sit in chairs today and ask the hard questions. And so what is it you'll do next? I hope you practice it. You're going to find something when you do. It works. A whole nother kind of thinking, a whole nother language. Trust. Don't try to figure it out. Just know you're never alone. And so it is.